The morning sun cast long shadows across the golden wheat fields of New Busan. Jinwoo Park stood on his office balcony, watching the farmers begin their daily work. The sight always made him smile. 15 years ago, this planet had been nothing but red dirt and poisonous air. Now it fed 500,000 people across 3 star systems. Jinwoo was the colony's defense commander, though most days he felt more like a safety inspector. His biggest worries were usually broken weather satellites or drunk miners causing trouble in town. The defense grid he managed was simple: a few orbital platforms and some surface guns meant to shoot down asteroids, not enemy ships. "Commander." "Park?" his assistant called from inside. "The morning reports are ready." Jinwoo walked back into his office, still thinking about the peaceful scene outside. The report showed everything normal. Power plants running smooth, transport ships on schedule, no problems anywhere. Dr. So-Young Kim was already busy in her lab when the sun came up. She had been studying the local plants for 10 years, trying to make them grow better. Her work helped feed thousands of people. Her husband Taimin worked on the air machines that kept the planet breathable for humans. Their twin children, 8-year-old Hyojin and Hyomin, were getting ready for school. They had never known any world but this one. To them, the red mountains and purple flowers were normal. They played with friends whose parents came from a dozen different planets. "Mom, can we visit the butterfly garden after school?" Hyojin asked, eating her breakfast. "If you finish your math homework," So-Young replied, kissing her daughter's head. The butterfly garden was one of her proudest achievements. She had created a safe space where Earth butterflies could live alongside native insects. Captain Hyunjin Lee was 3 days into a routine patrol of the outer system. His ship, Soul's Pride, was small but fast. Most of the time, he dealt with lost cargo ships or helped fix broken mining equipment. The biggest excitement usually came from finding smugglers trying to avoid taxes. "Sir, we're getting some strange readings from the edge sensors," reported his navigation officer. "Strange how?" Hyunjin asked, not too worried. Space was full of strange things. Just some energy spikes, probably solar flares from the red dwarf star. But they're pretty big. Hyunjin nodded. Solar flares could mess with communications and sensors. "Keep an eye on it. Let me know if it gets worse." Back on New Busan, Lieutenant Commander Bora Cho was having a quiet morning in the communications center. She handled all the messages between New Busan and other worlds. Most of it was boring stuff: shipping schedules, weather reports, family messages. The communications room was underground, built into the solid rock beneath the main city. It was one of the few places on the planet that could survive almost anything. Bora often joked that if the planet ever had problems, her little room would probably be the last place standing. "Bora, can you try reaching New Incheon?" asked her supervisor. They missed their daily check-in. Bora frowned. New Incheon was a mining colony 2 systems away. They were usually very good about staying in touch. "Sure, let me try now." She sent out the call and waited. Nothing came back. That was odd, but not necessarily dangerous. Sometimes solar storms or equipment problems caused communication blackouts. Warrant Officer Dong Hyun Choi was training the local militia in the hills outside the main city. Most of the militia members were farmers and shopkeepers who volunteered, a few hours each week. They learned basic first aid and how to help during emergencies like fires or earthquakes. Dong Hyun had fought in the last real war, 30 years ago, against the insect-like aliens called the Vextar. That had been brutal and bloody, but it ended before most of these young people were even born. To them, the militia was just a way to stay in shape and help their neighbors. "Remember, the most important thing is to stay calm," he told the group, as they practiced carrying injured people. "Panic kills more people than accidents do." One of the younger militia members, a farmer named Ki-Tai, raised his hand. "Sir, what if we ever get attacked by aliens again?" Dong Hyun almost laughed. "Kid, nobody wants to attack New Busan. We grow food and mine basic metals. There's nothing here worth fighting a war over." Dr. Taemin Kim was working on atmospheric processor number 7 when his wife called him. The big machines that kept their air breathable needed constant care. One breakdown could kill everyone in a city. "Honey, have you heard from your brother lately?" So-Young asked. Taemin's brother lived on New Gwangju, another farming world. Not for a few days. Why? Bora says they can't reach any of the outer colonies today. Probably just communication problems, but Taemin wiped his hands on a cloth. His brother was a good man with a family of his own. I'll try calling him after I finish here. The day continued normally for most people. Children went to school. Adults went to work. The daily transport ship arrived from Earth, bringing mail and supplies. Everything seemed peaceful and safe. But as evening came, Bora was getting worried. She still couldn't reach New Incheon or New Gwangju. 2 other colonies had gone silent too. Solar storms didn't usually last this long or affect this many places. Sir, I think we have a real problem, she told Commander Park over the phone. Jin-woo put down his dinner and listened as Bora explained. 4 colonies, all silent. No responses to any messages. The last communications from each place had been normal routine reports. Could it be equipment failure? He asked. Maybe, but all 4? At the same time? That's a pretty big coincidence. Jin-woo felt a cold worry growing in his stomach. In all his years running colony defense, he had never faced a real emergency. Keep trying to reach them. I'm going to call Captain Lee. But when Bora tried to contact Seoul's Pride, she got nothing but static. Far out at the edge of the solar system, massive shapes moved through the darkness of space. They were ships, but they looked more like living creatures than machines. Their hulls seemed to breathe and shift like skin. Strange lights pulsed along their sides like veins carrying glowing blood. Inside the largest ship, Fleet Admiral Kesathul studied the images of New Busan. The humans looked soft and weak, just as the intelligence reports had said. Their defenses were pathetic. Their ships were toys compared to Dominion war vessels. How many humans live on this world? He asked in his hissing voice. 50,000, Admiral. All civilians except for a small defense force. Kesathul's long tongue flicked out to taste the air. The Sekthul had been watching human expansion for decades. These creatures bred too fast and spread too far. Soon they would compete with the Dominion for living space and resources. Better to crush them now while they were still weak and scattered. Begin the attack, he commanded. On New Busan, Jin-woo Park stood in his office, trying to decide what to do. Maybe the communication problems were just equipment failures. Maybe everything was fine and he was worrying about nothing. Then the alarm started ringing. The alarm sounds cut through the peaceful evening like knives. Jin-woo Park ran to his command center as red lights flashed all around him. The defense grid computers were screaming warnings that made no sense. What's happening? He shouted to his staff. Sir, we have 3 massive objects coming out of hyperspace, reported his sensor operator, voice shaking. They're huge, bigger than anything in our database. Jin-woo looked at the main screen and felt his blood turn cold. 3 enormous ships, hung in space above New Busan like dark mountains. They were not like any ships he had ever seen. Their hulls looked alive, covered in what seemed like scales that moved and shifted. Strange lights pulsed along their sides. How big? He asked quietly. Each one is about 30 kilometers long, sir. Jin-woo's hands shook as he reached for the emergency communications panel. Their entire defense grid could barely handle one small warship. These things were floating cities of destruction. All stations, this is Colony Defense Command. We have unknown hostile vessels in orbit. Begin emergency evacuation procedures immediately. Dr. So-young Kim was reading bedtime stories to her twins when the siren started. Taemin burst through the door, his face white with fear. We have to go now, he said, grabbing emergency bags they had packed years ago but never expected to use. Everyone has to get to the underground shelters. Hyojin started crying. Mommy, what's wrong? Why are the loud noises playing? So-young picked up her daughter while Taemin grabbed Hyomin. We're going to play a hiding game, sweetheart. Remember the safe rooms we showed you at school? We're going there now. The streets filled with panicked people. Families carried children and belongings as they hurried toward the shelter entrances. Most of them had never experienced anything more dangerous than a bad storm. Captain Hyun-jin, Lee saw the alien ships on his sensors and knew Seoul's Pride was no match for them. But he also knew there were 50,000 people on New Busan who needed time to reach safety. All power to weapons and shields. He ordered his small crew. We're going in. His navigation officer looked at him like he was crazy. Sir, those ships will destroy us in seconds. Maybe. But every second we buy gives more families time to reach the shelters. Soul's Pride was a patrol vessel, not a warship. It had light weapons meant for stopping smugglers, not fighting alien dreadnoughts. But Hyunjin pointed his ship toward the largest enemy vessel and fired everything he had. The first plasma beams from the alien ships lit up space like miniature suns. They cut through Soul's Pride shields like they weren't even there. The little ship exploded in a flash of white light, taking Captain Lee and his crew with it. But their sacrifice bought precious minutes. On the surface, the alien bombardment began. Beams of superheated plasma fell from the sky like deadly rain. The spaceport disappeared in a ball of fire. The main defense installations melted into slag within seconds. Jin-Woo watched his defense grid die on the monitors around him. Every weapon platform, every shield generator, everything they had built to protect the colony was being destroyed faster than he could track. Sir, we're getting reports of alien landing ships, called his communications officer. Through the chaos, Jin-Woo could see the enemy ground forces approaching. The ships that carried them looked like giant metal insects. They landed in the fields outside the city and opened like flower petals, releasing the attackers inside. The Sekthul soldiers were nightmares made real. They stood 3 meters tall, with thick scaled skin that seemed to absorb weapon hits. Their heads were long and narrow like snakes with glowing yellow eyes. Instead of hands, they had claws that could slice through steel. Energy weapons were grafted directly onto their arms, making them living instruments of war. Warrant Officer Dong-hyun Choi had been in his apartment when the attack started. Now he ran through the streets, gathering any militia members he could find. Most of the civilians were safely in the underground shelters, but someone had to slow down the alien ground troops. Kite, over here, he called to the young farmer who had asked about alien attacks just hours before. The boy looked terrified but determined. What do we do, sir? Dong-hyun checked his rifle. It was a simple weapon meant for training and hunting. Against the Sekthul's bioarmor, it would be nearly useless. We make them pay for every step. They set up in the ruins of the community center. 8 militia members with basic weapons against an alien army. Dong-hyun had been in hopeless battles before. Sometimes you fought not because you could win, but because it was right. The first Sekthul warrior came around a corner and Dong-hyun put 3 bullets into its chest. The shots barely scratched its scales. The alien turned toward them with a sound like steam escaping from a pipe. Its arm-mounted weapon charged with crackling energy. "Spread out!" Dong-hyun yelled. The plasma blast turned the wall behind him into molten stone. Kite fired his hunting rifle again and again, trying to hit the alien's eyes. The other militia members threw everything they had at the creature, but their weapons couldn't penetrate its natural armor. More Sekthul soldiers appeared. The militia fell back, fighting from building to building. They managed to slow the aliens down, but at terrible cost. Young Kaite died when a plasma blast caught him in the open. An older woman named Haesun was cut down by alien claws as she tried to rescue a wounded friend. In the command bunker, Jin-Woo watched the battle through security cameras. His people were dying to buy time for the evacuation, but there were so many aliens. How could they stop an entire army? "Sir, we're getting reports that the Sekthul are rounding up civilians who didn't make it to the shelters," reported his intelligence officer. Jin-Woo closed his eyes. Those people were being taken as prisoners, probably to work as slaves in Diaryo, alien mines. The thought made him sick. Lieutenant Commander Bora Cho was in her underground communications center, trying desperately to contact someone, anyone who could help. The quantum transmitter was damaged but still working. "This is New Busan Colony to any Federation forces," she broadcast on all emergency channels. "We are under attack by unknown alien forces. They have orbital superiority and are landing ground. Troops, civilian evacuation in progress, but we need immediate assistance." Static answered her. The alien ships were jamming most communications, but maybe someone would hear her. Dr. So-young Kim held her children close in the underground shelter. The walls shook every time plasma beams hit the surface above them. Emergency lights cast Strange shadows on the faces of hundreds of frightened colonists. "When will Daddy come back?" Hyomin asked in a small voice. "Soon, baby. Daddy's helping other people get safe, then he'll come find us." But So Young wasn't sure if Taemin was still alive. He had stayed behind to help with the atmospheric processors, making sure the aliens couldn't poison their air. She hadn't heard from him since the attack began. An older man named Jae-ho tried to keep everyone calm by telling stories and leading quiet songs, but they could all hear the sounds of battle, getting closer. Plasma weapons made distinctive crackling sounds. Sekthul war cries sounded like steam pipes bursting. Outside, Fleet Admiral Kesathul watched the conquest from his command ship. The humans fought harder than expected for such weak creatures, but the outcome was never in doubt. His warriors were bred for war. These soft farmers and miners could not stand against the Dominion. "How many prisoners have we taken?" he asked. "Nearly 8,000, Admiral. The rest are hiding in underground bunkers. Leave them for now. Seal the bunkers, but don't waste time digging them out. We have more colonies to conquer." The Sekthul had a simple strategy. Hit fast, take what they wanted, and move on. Let the survivors think about their defeat while the Dominion continued expanding. By dawn, New Busan was a conquered world. Smoke rose from a dozen burning buildings. Alien soldiers patrolled streets that had been peaceful just hours before. The colonists who hadn't reached the shelters in time were being loaded onto transport ships like cargo. In her communications bunker, Bo-Ra Cho made one last desperate transmission before the aliens found and destroyed her equipment. "This is New Busan Colony. Final transmission. We are overrun. Unknown alien force with massive ships and advanced ground troops. They came from nowhere. Destroyed everything. Millions of people across multiple colonies. Please send everything you have." The transmission cut to static as Sekthul, plasma fire melted through the bunker door. Far away on Earth, that message would eventually reach people who could do something about it. But for the colonists of New Busan, help seemed impossible. They had learned a terrible truth. Humanity's peaceful expansion into space had finally attracted the attention of something that saw them not as neighbors, but as prey. The dragons of human space were about to wake up, but for now all the colonists could do was survive and hope. The message from Bo-Ra Cho reached Earth 3 days after New Busan fell. It came through damaged relay stations and broken communication networks, arriving at Terra Command as fragments of data and static-filled audio. Fleet Admiral Kang Dai, Yoon was having morning coffee when his aide burst into his office with the decoded message. Yoon had been in the Federation Navy for 40 years, but he had never seen his young aide look so pale. "Sir, you need to hear this immediately." Yoon listened to Bo-Ra's final transmission 3 times, his expression growing darker with each replay. Unknown aliens with massive ships, multiple colonies destroyed, millions of people dead or missing. "Get me President Nam on secure communication," he ordered, "and activate the emergency defense protocol. All fleet commanders are to report to Terra Command within 12 hours. President Ji Nam had been in office for 6 years, all of them peaceful. The Federation had been focused on expansion and trade, not war. She had cut military spending to fund new colonies and scientific research. Now she stood in the emergency situation room, surrounded by her most senior advisors, wondering if those decisions had doomed humanity. "How many people are we talking about?" she asked Admiral Yoon. New Busan had 50,000 residents. New Incheon had 30,000. New Gwangju had 80,000. If the other silent colonies were hit too. Yoon paused, doing math no leader should ever have to do. "We could be looking at 500,000 dead or captured civilians." President Nam felt sick. 500,000 people, families, children, all gone while she slept safely on Earth. "What do we know about these aliens?" "Nothing, ma'am. They don't match any known species in our databases, but they have technology that makes our standard warships look like toys." General Wu Jin, CO of the Federation Marine Corps, stepped forward. He was a big man with scars from the Vextar War, and his voice was like grinding stone. "Ma'am, with your permission, I want to begin full military mobilization immediately. Every shipyard, every factory, every resource we have needs to be turned toward fighting this threat." President Nam looked around the room at faces filled with worry and determination. These were good people who had spent decades building peace. Now they had to learn how to make war again. Do it, she said quietly. Whatever it takes. Across human space, the machinery of war began to wake up. Civilian shipyards that had been building cargo haulers and passenger liners retooled overnight to produce warships. Factories that made farming equipment switched to making weapons and armor. Dr. Yunji Bei was working in her laboratory on Mars when the mobilization order came through. She was a weapons researcher, but for the past 10 years she had focused on peaceful applications of energy technology. Now her superiors wanted her to design ways to kill aliens she had never seen. The first thing she did was analyze the wreckage from Sol's Pride. The patrol ship's computer core had survived just long enough to record sensor data from the alien weapons. What she found made her hands shake. The aliens used plasma weapons, but not like anything humans had developed. Their energy beams seemed to be alive somehow, adapting to whatever they hit. Standard armor was useless against them. "We need new materials," she told her research team. "Something that can absorb or redirect plasma energy instead of just trying to stop it." Her assistant, a young man named Kyung Ho, raised his hand. "What about electromagnetic fields? If we could generate strong enough magnetic barriers," Yunji nodded. "It was possible, but it would require enormous power sources." "Start working on it. We need every advantage we can get." Meanwhile, Commander Jae-Sung Moon was preparing the 7th Fleet for what might be humanity's most important battle. His flagship, the Indomitable Dragon, was the most advanced warship ever built by human hands. But would it be enough? The 7th Fleet had 24 major warships and twice that many support vessels. It was designed to fight human pirates and maybe handle another insect swarm like the Vextar. Against an unknown alien empire with ships the size of cities, Moon wasn't sure if they stood a chance. "Sir, we're getting reports from our scouts," his intelligence officer reported. "The aliens have hit 17 colonies so far. They seem to be targeting agricultural and mining worlds." Moon studied the tactical display. The alien attacks formed a pattern. They were cutting off Earth from its food and resource supplies. Smart strategy. Starve the core worlds before attacking them directly. "How long until we reach the combat zone?" 6 days at maximum speed, sir." 6 days. How many more colonies would fall in that time? On the occupied worlds, human survivors were learning what it meant to be slaves under Sekthul rule. Dr. Taemin Kim had been captured while trying to sabotage the atmospheric processors. Now he worked in the alien mining operations, digging rare metals from New Busan's mountains. The Sekthul guards were cruel and efficient. They had translator devices that let them give orders in broken human languages. Anyone who moved too slowly or showed any sign of resistance was killed immediately. "Work faster, soft skin," one guard hissed at Taimin. "The Dominion needs metals for new warships." Taemin gripped his mining tools tighter. Every gram of metal he dug would be used to build weapons that would kill more humans. But if he refused to work, they would execute him, and then someone else would do the job anyway. In the underground shelters of New Busan, Dr. So Young Kim was trying to keep hope alive among the trapped colonists. They had food and water for several months, but no communication with the outside world. For all they knew, Earth had already fallen too. Sergeant Major Young Soo-han was one of the few military personnel who had made it to the shelters. He was organizing the civilians into work groups and trying to plan some kind of resistance. "We can't just sit here and wait," he told the shelter council. "Those aliens are using our people as slave labor. We have to do something." An older woman named Mi-sun shook her head. "What can we do? We have no weapons, no way to contact help. If we try to fight, they'll kill everyone." Young-soo understood her fear, but he had seen what giving up led to. "Ma'am, they're going to kill us anyway eventually. At least if we fight, we might save some lives." The debate continued, but Young-soo was already making plans. There were maintenance tunnels that connected the shelter to the surface. If they could get weapons from dead alien soldiers, maybe they could cause enough trouble to help when Federation forces arrived. If Federation forces arrived. Back on Earth, President Nam addressed the Federation Assembly and the citizens of humanity in a speech that would be remembered for centuries. My fellow humans, she began, standing at the podium where so many peaceful treaties had been signed. For 30 years we have lived in peace. We have built new worlds among the stars and brought hope to the galaxy. Today, that peace has been shattered by an enemy that shows no mercy to the innocent. The assembly hall was quiet except for the sound of her voice echoing from speakers across human space. We do not know who these aliens are or why they chose to attack us, but we know what they have done. They have murdered hundreds of thousands of our people. They have enslaved our children. They have destroyed worlds that took decades to build. Her voice grew stronger, filled with quiet fury. To the enemy, if you are listening, I have this message. You have awakened something in humanity that has slept for 30 years. We are not just farmers and miners and traders. We are the species that fought its way up from caves to reach the stars. We are the people who have never surrendered in the face of extinction. President Nam's hands gripped the podium as she delivered the words that would become humanity's rallying cry. You came to our worlds expecting to find prey. Instead, you have found dragons. And dragons, when they wake, burn everything that threatens what they protect. The Federation's response was swift and total. Every human world contributed ships, weapons, and soldiers. Peaceful research stations became military bases overnight. Civilian pilots volunteered for combat duty. Even children too young to fight, helped by making ammunition and supplies. Dr. Bay's team worked around the clock to develop countermeasures against alien technology. They tested new armor designs and energy weapons, racing against time as more colonies fell each day. The breakthrough came when they analyzed debris from a Sekthul landing craft. The alien bioarmor had a specific electromagnetic frequency that disrupted its molecular bonds. We can hurt them, Bay told Admiral Yoon over a secure channel. Their armor looks invincible, but it has a weakness. We need weapons that can generate focused electromagnetic pulses. How long to build them? If every factory on Mars works day and night? 2 weeks for the first prototypes. Yoon nodded grimly. 2 weeks. They would have to hold the line until then. As the 7th Fleet approached the war zone, Commander Moon received updates on the alien advance. 3 more colonies had gone silent. The enemy was moving faster than anyone had expected, but humanity was moving too. For the first time in 30 years, every human in the galaxy was united with a single purpose: survival. The sleeping dragon of human military power was opening its eyes, and its gaze was filled with fire. The real war was about to begin. Commander Jae-Sung Moon stood on the bridge of the indomitable dragon as his fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Tau Ceti system. What he saw through the main view screen made his blood run cold. 12 massive Sekthul warships hung in orbit around New Shanghai, humanity's industrial colony. The planet's surface glowed with fires where cities used to be. Pieces of destroyed human ships drifted in space like metal snow. "Sir, we're detecting approximately 40,000 human life signs on the surface," reported his sensor officer. "But they're concentrated in what look like prison camps." Moon gripped the command rail tighter. 40,000 people, workers, families, children, all enslaved by these alien monsters. Every minute he waited was another minute of suffering for those prisoners. "All ships, this is Dragon Command. We go in fast and hard. Target their command vessel first, then work outward. Remember, we have people on that planet who are counting on us." Captain Arum Young commanded the heavy cruiser Tiger of Pusan, one of the 7th Fleet's most powerful warships. She had been studying the tactical reports from the destroyed colonies, looking for any weakness in the alien ships. "Weapons officer, load the new gravitic torpedoes," she ordered. "Let's see if Dr. Bay's theories work in practice." The gravitic torpedoes were untested weapons that used focused gravity waves to disrupt molecular bonds. If Bay was right, they might be able to crack the aliens' bioarmor where conventional weapons failed. The 7th Fleet charged toward the Sekthul formation like a spear thrust at the heart of an enemy. The alien ships turned to meet them, their living hulls pulsing with angry red light. The battle began with the longest-range weapons. Both sides fired energy beams across millions of kilometers of space. The aliens' plasma cannons cut through, human shields like they were made of paper, but the Federation ships kept coming. "First torpedo salvo away," reported Young's weapons officer. The gravitic torpedoes struck the lead Sec-Thule ship with flashes of twisted space-time. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then cracks appeared in the alien vessel's hull, spreading. "Like breaking glass, it's working," Young shouted. "All ships target that wounded vessel." The damaged alien ship tried to turn away, but Federation missiles and energy beams pounded it from all sides. Its bioarmor, which had seemed invincible just minutes before, began to peel away in burning sheets. But the Sec-Thule weren't helpless. War Prime Thek Sowell, commanding the alien fleet from his flagship, had been watching human expansion for years. He knew these creatures were more dangerous than they looked. "Release the Devourers," he commanded in his hissing voice. 3 of the largest Sec-Thule ships began to change shape. Their hulls split open like flower petals, revealing something that made the human crews freeze in terror. Inside each ship was a living creature the size of a mountain, covered in tentacles and mouths full of glowing teeth. These were the bioships, partially alive vessels that could literally eat enemy craft and add their mass to their own bodies. The Federation had never seen anything like them. The first bioship wrapped its tentacles around a Federation destroyer, the Sol Dawn. The crew barely had time to scream before acidic secretions began dissolving their hull. Within minutes, the destroyer was gone, absorbed into the alien creature's body. "All ships stay away from those things," Moon broadcast to his fleet. "Use long-range weapons only." But it was too late. The bioships moved faster than anything that size should be able to move. They had been designed for exactly this kind of battle, ship-to-ship combat where they could feed on enemy vessels. Lieutenant Colonel Minho Kwok was leading a boarding party aboard one of the smaller alien vessels when everything went wrong. His Marines had fought their way through corridors that pulsed like blood vessels, past alien crew members whose weapons were grafted directly to their arms. Now they were trapped inside a ship that was literally alive and very angry at having intruders in its body. "Sir, the walls are closing in," reported Sergeant Daeho Park, his voice tight with fear. Minho looked around at the organic corridor they were in. The walls were definitely moving, trying to crush them like an immune system attacking an infection. Their weapons were running low on ammunition, and they were kilometers from their entry point. "There." Minho pointed to what looked like a major nerve cluster pulsing with bioluminescent light. "If this thing is alive, maybe we can give it a heart attack." They placed their remaining explosives around the nerve cluster and ran. The explosion sent shockwaves through the entire alien ship. Around them, the walls screamed, an actual sound of pain that came from the living vessel itself. The ship convulsed and began drifting out of formation. Minho's Marines had learned something important. The bioships could be hurt, but you had to attack them like living creatures, not machines. Chief Engineer Haewon Park was working frantically in her laboratory aboard the Federation research vessel Bright Star. She had been analyzing samples of the bioship material that Minho's teams had brought back. "It's not just armor," she told her research team over the communication system. "The ship hulls are actually alive. They have nervous systems, immune responses, even what looks like pain receptors." Her assistant, a young scientist named Sung-Ho Kim, looked up from his microscope. "Chief, what if we treated them like infections? Used some kind of biological weapon?" Haewon nodded excitedly. "Nanobots. We could program them to attack the biological components like viruses attacking cells." It was a desperate idea, but desperate times called for desperate measures. They began reprogramming construction nanobots to see alien biomatter as hostile organisms that needed to be destroyed. The battle raged for hours. The Federation ships were faster and more maneuverable, but the Sec-Thule vessels were tougher and had those terrifying bioships. Both sides took heavy casualties. Commander Moon watched 3 of his destroyers get devoured by the alien creatures. The Tiger of Pusan was badly damaged, with Captain Young barely keeping her ship together. But the humans were learning how to fight these things. "All ships concentrate fire on the bioship's nerve clusters," he ordered. "Treat them like living creatures, not warships." The tide began to turn when Chief Engineer Park's nanobots were deployed. Federation torpedoes carrying the microscopic weapons struck one of the bioships, and within minutes the creature began writhing in obvious agony. The nanobots spread through its living tissue like a disease, breaking down the biological components that held the ship together. The alien creature's death scream could be heard even through the vacuum of space, transmitted through radio waves generated by its dying nervous system. War Prime. Thexowl watched his bioship die and felt something like fear for the first time in decades. These humans were adapting faster than any enemy the Dominion had ever faced. They learned from every battle, turned every defeat into knowledge for the next fight. All ships, retreat to the outer system, he commanded. We will regroup and wait for reinforcements. But Commander Moon wasn't about to let them escape. All ships pursue. Don't let a single alien vessel get away. The running battle continued for another 6 hours as the Federation fleet chased the retreating Sekthul ships toward the edge of the system. Moon's forces were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the aliens didn't expect: pure human fury at what had been done to their people. Captain Young's Tiger of Pusan caught up with one of the fleeing alien ships and pounded it with everything she had left. The gravitic torpedoes cracked its bioarmor while conventional weapons exploited the wounds. "This is for New Shanghai," she said quietly as her final salvo tore the enemy vessel apart. When the battle finally ended, the Federation had lost 8 ships and nearly 3,000 crew members. But they had destroyed or crippled 6 Sekthul warships, including 2 of the terrifying bioships. More importantly, they had learned how to fight these aliens. The Sekthul were tough and technologically advanced, but they could be beaten. Commander Moon stood in his damaged bridge and looked out at the wreckage floating around New Shanghai. His fleet had won the battle, but the cost had been enormous. Good people were dead. An entire world was in ruins, but they had sent a message to the galaxy: humanity would not go quietly into slavery. The dragons were awake now, and they were very, very angry. On New Shanghai's surface, the human prisoners in the alien camps heard the sounds of battle in space above them. They didn't know who was winning, but for the first time since the invasion began, they had hope. Sergeant Major Young-Soo Han had managed to organize a resistance movement among the prisoners. When they saw the alien guards looking nervous and distracted by the space battle, they knew it was time to act. "Remember," he told his fellow prisoners, "we don't have to win. We just have to cause enough trouble to help our people up there." The prison uprising began as Federation ships fought Sekthul vessels overhead. It was the first time humans and aliens had fought as equals, and the aliens discovered that enslaved humans were much more dangerous than they had expected. The war was far from over, but humanity had proven something important to both themselves and their enemies. Dragons once awakened do not go back to sleep until their fury is satisfied, and humanity's fury had only begun to burn. 6 months after the first alien attack on New Busan, the war had spread across 100 star systems. Both sides had learned hard lessons written in blood and fire. The Sekthul controlled 19 human worlds, but their advance had stopped. Humanity was no longer running. They were fighting back. Fleet Admiral Kang Dae-yoon stood in the war room on Earth, surrounded by holographic displays showing the entire battlefront. Red markers showed alien-controlled systems. Blue markers showed Federation forces. The front line looked like a jagged wound across human space. "Operation Dragon's Breath is our only chance to end this war," he told the assembled commanders. "If we attack all occupied worlds simultaneously, we can prevent the aliens from reinforcing each other." General Sujin Lim, promoted after organizing successful resistance movements on 3 conquered worlds, studied the tactical displays. She had spent months fighting Sekthul ground forces and knew their weaknesses better than anyone. "Sir, the ground campaigns will be brutal," she warned. "The aliens have had time to dig in and fortify their positions, and they're using human prisoners as forced labor to build their defenses." President Ji Nam, her face showing the strain of 6 months of constant war, nodded grimly. "How many casualties are we looking at?" "Best case, 50,000 dead across all operations," Admiral Yoon replied. "Worst case, we could lose half our fleet." The room fell silent. Everyone knew the numbers, but hearing them spoken aloud made the weight of command feel even heavier. "What if we do nothing?" President Nam asked quietly. "Then the aliens continue to consolidate their conquests. They use our people as slaves to build more weapons and ships. Eventually, they attack Earth itself with forces we can't possibly stop." President Nam closed her eyes for a long moment, thinking of all the families who would lose loved ones in the coming battles. Then she opened them, and her voice was steel. "Do it. Launch Operation Dragon's Breath." Dr. Yunji Bei was putting the finishing touches on humanity's newest weapon when the operation began. The quantum disruptors were her masterpiece. Devices that could sever the neural connections between Sekthul pilots and their bioships. "The theory is sound," she told Admiral Yoon over a secure channel. "Cut the mental link, and their ships become just empty husks floating in space." "Theory is nice, Doctor. Will it work in battle?" Bei looked at the prototype device, no bigger than a briefcase but containing technology that pushed the limits of human science. "We're about to find out." The largest battle of Operation Dragon's Breath took place above New Terra, humanity's biggest colonial world. The planet held 2 million prisoners and was defended by the core of the Sekthul fleet. War Prime Thexul commanded the defense from his flagship, a bioship so massive it had its own gravity field. He had been fighting humans for 6 months now, and he had learned to respect their adaptability. But this would be their final test. "Let them come," he hissed to his subordinates. "We will crush their fleet and then burn their home world." Fleet Admiral Yoon led the human assault personally aboard the super dreadnought Rising Dragon, the most powerful warship humanity had ever built. Around him, 3 Federation fleets, nearly 200 ships, dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. "All ships, this is Fleet Command," Yoon broadcast. "Today we take back our people and our worlds, show these aliens what happens when they threaten human children." The space battle above New Terra was like nothing seen before in human history. Hundreds of ships exchanged fire across millions of cubic kilometers of space. Plasma beams and gravitic torpedoes lit up the darkness like deadly fireworks. Captain Sora Kim, Dr. So Young Kim's sister who had become humanity's top fighter pilot, led a squadron of interceptors against the alien biofighters. These were smaller versions of the bioships, living craft that moved like angry insects through space. "Dragon Squadron, stay in formation," she ordered over the radio. "Remember, these things can think. Don't let them predict your movements." Her fighter danced through a storm of plasma fire, her ship's AI helping her dodge attacks that came faster than human reflexes could handle. The new electromagnetic pulse weapons worked perfectly, disrupting the biofighters' nervous systems and sending them spinning helplessly through space. On the surface of New Terra, the ground battle was just as fierce. General Lim led the 3rd Marine Division in a massive assault on the alien prison camps. Her troops had trained for months specifically for this mission, liberating human prisoners from Sekthul labor camps. The aliens had turned the prison camps into fortresses, with energy barriers and automated defense systems. But they hadn't counted on the prisoners fighting back from the inside. Dr. Taemin Kim had been a prisoner for 6 months, forced to work in alien mining operations. But he had also been secretly organizing resistance cells among the other captives. When he heard Federation dropships overhead, he knew it was time. "Now," he shouted to his fellow prisoners. "Hit the guards now while they're distracted." The prison uprising began with simple tools. Mining equipment turned into weapons, electrical cables used to short out alien communications. The Sekthul guards found themselves fighting a 2-front war as Federation Marines attacked from outside, while prisoners rebelled from within. Commander Gisu O was leading a desperate attack on War Prime Thexul's flagship when Dr. Bei's quantum disruptors were finally deployed. His small squadron of bombers had to penetrate the bioship's living defenses and plant the experimental devices directly on its neural centers. "This is Sword Leader," he radioed to his wing. "We're going in. If these disruptors don't work, we probably won't be coming back." His bomber dove into the bioship's defensive fire, plasma beams scorching his hull as he flew through what looked like the inside of a living throat. The ship's immune system attacked his craft with antibody-like creatures, but his escort fighters cleared the way with electromagnetic pulse weapons. The quantum disruptor activated just as O's bomber reached the bioship's brain center. The effect was immediate and devastating. The massive alien vessel suddenly stopped moving, its living system shutting down as the neural link to its pilot was severed. "It worked!" O shouted over the radio. The big ugly just went dead in. "Space!" Across the battlefield, other Federation bombers deployed quantum disruptors against alien bioships. One by one, the living vessels went dark as their pilots were cut off from their ship's consciousness. War Prime. Thexaul felt his flagship die around him like losing a part of his own body. The bioship that had been his home and weapon for decades was now just dead meat floating in space. "All ships retreat," he commanded, but his fleet was already breaking apart. Without their bioships, the Sekthul had lost their greatest advantage. The battle above New Terra ended with complete human victory. The alien fleet was destroyed or scattered, and Federation forces began the process of liberating 2 million prisoners. Similar battles raged across 19 star systems as Operation Dragon's Breath unfolded. Not all went as well as New Terra. The Federation lost entire fleets at some worlds, and several colonies were destroyed rather than liberated. But humanity's strategy worked. The simultaneous attacks prevented the aliens from concentrating their forces. On New Busan, where the war had begun, Dr. So-Young Kim emerged from the underground shelters for the first time in 6 months. Federation, Marines had cleared the alien occupiers and the planet was free again. The surface was scarred by battle and alien strip mining, but it was still home. So-Young walked through the ruins of her old laboratory, looking for anything that might have survived. She found a small pot with one of her hybrid flowers still growing in it, somehow alive despite everything. Her husband Tai Min had survived the prison camps, though he was thin and scarred from his ordeal. Their twins, Hyojin and Hyo-min, had grown up quickly during their months in hiding. They were no longer the innocent children who had played in butterfly gardens. "Will the aliens come back, Mommy?" Hyojin asked as they stood in the ruins of their old home. So-Young looked up at the sky where Federation patrol ships now kept watch. "Maybe someday, sweetheart. But if they do, we'll be ready for them." The war officially ended 3 weeks, after Operation Dragon's Breath, when the surviving Sekthul forces retreated beyond the galactic rim. War Prime Thexaul and the remainder of his fleet disappeared into the dark space between galaxies, carrying news of humanity's strength back to the Dominion's home worlds. The cost had been enormous. Nearly 3 million humans were dead, and 12 colonies were so badly damaged they had to be abandoned. But humanity had survived, and more importantly, they had learned what they were capable of when threatened with extinction. President Nam stood at a memorial ceremony on New Terra, where families gathered to honor those who had died in the liberation. The monument was simple, a wall of black stone with the names of everyone who had given their lives for freedom. "We did not choose this war," she said to the crowd of survivors. "But when war came to us, we showed the galaxy what humanity truly is. We are not just farmers and miners and explorers. We are dragons who sleep peacefully until someone threatens what we love." Fleet Admiral Yoon announced new defensive measures that would prevent another surprise attack. Federation fleets would patrol the borders of human space.